She had just finished a long day at work, the kind of day where you want nothing more than to get home, take off your shoes, and breathe. But as she walked toward her driveway, keys in hand, she noticed the stare. A sharp, judging glare from across the street. Within seconds, that glare turned into shouting, accusations echoing through the peaceful suburban neighborhood. "She's stealing that car." The words cut through the air like a siren. Neighbors peeked from their windows. A few stepped outside, and phones began recording. She froze, her own car, in her own driveway. But suddenly she was the suspect. What followed wasn't just a misunderstanding. It became a moment that exposed the truth about how fragile belonging can be when the color of your skin decides your innocence. This is the story of what happened when one woman was pushed too far, and how she turned humiliation into a powerful act no one saw coming. Tanya Williams had always been proud of what she'd accomplished. After years of late shifts and double jobs, she had finally bought her first home. A cozy brick house in a quiet cul-de-sac lined with perfect lawns and smiling faces. On paper, it was everything she dreamed of: peace, safety, and a sense of community. But what looks perfect on the outside often hides something darker beneath. The Homeowners Association, the HOA, ran the neighborhood like a small government. They sent warnings for leaving trash cans out too long. They fined people for the wrong shade of curtains. But Tanya didn't mind the rules. She followed them all. What bothered her was the way they looked at her, the polite smiles that stopped just short of warmth. She was the only black homeowner on the street, and though no one said it out loud, she could feel it. The way conversations went quiet when she passed, the way the HOA president, a woman named Karen Dalton, always seemed to find something wrong with her property. At first, Tanya ignored it. She paid her dues, kept her lawn immaculate, and waved anyway. She believed kindness could disarm prejudice. But sometimes, kindness isn't enough when people have already decided who you are. On that Thursday evening, as the golden light stretched across the driveways, Tanya was unlocking her blue SUV when Karen appeared, phone in hand, that familiar frown plastered on her face. What happened next would shatter Tanya's peace and change the neighborhood forever. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" The voice came sharp, cutting through the calm hum of suburban silence. Tanya looked up, startled but calm. "I'm unlocking my car," she said softly. But Karen wasn't listening. She'd already started shouting, claiming the car wasn't Tanya's, that she'd seen someone suspicious, matching her description in the area. Neighbors began to emerge, curiosity pulling them out like moths to light. Some crossed their arms, others whispered. A few began recording. And then came the line that made Tanya's stomach drop. "I'm calling the police." Tanya froze. Her mind raced back to all the stories she'd seen. People just like her, doing nothing wrong, suddenly surrounded by flashing lights and assumptions. She felt anger rising, but also fear. Within minutes, the sirens wailed in the distance. 2 police cars pulled up, tires crunching against the curb. The officer stepped out, one hand already resting near his holster. Karen greeted them like she'd done them a favor. "That's her. I caught her trying to break into this car. I've never seen her here before." Tanya's voice trembled, but she stood tall. "This is my car. I live here, 342, Maple Court. You can check the registration." The officers exchanged glances. One asked for her ID. Tanya handed it over, her fingers shaking slightly. Every movement felt like a test, every breath like it could be misinterpreted. Behind her, the crowd grew. Some filmed, others just watched in silence, their faces unreadable. Karen crossed her arms, confident, almost smug, like justice was on her side. But what no one realized, not yet, was that Tanya had more power than they thought. After verifying her ID and registration, the officers confirmed it. The car was hers. The tension cracked slightly, replaced with awkward silence. One officer muttered an apology, while the other gave Karen a stern look before stepping away. But Tanya wasn't relieved. Not this time. She had endured the humiliation of being accused, of being stared at like a criminal in her own driveway. And now, she was supposed to just go back inside like nothing happened? No. That night, Tanya couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Karen's voice, that entitlement, that confidence. So, Tanya decided she would do something that would expose the truth, not with anger, but with undeniable power. The next morning, she made a few calls, not to the HOA, not to the police, but to a lawyer, a local news outlet, and a civil rights organization that specialized in discrimination cases. What started as an accusation would soon become a spotlight. By the following week, the neighborhood was buzzing. Tanya had filed a formal complaint, not just against Karen, but against the entire HOA for harassment and racial discrimination. Karen tried to downplay it, calling it a misunderstanding. But Tanya wasn't backing down this time. Her story hit local news. Black homeowner accused of stealing her own car by HOA president. The headline alone was enough to ignite outrage online. Within days, reporters were parked on the same street where she'd once been humiliated. Cameras caught the same backdrop: manicured lawns, identical homes, and one woman who refused to be silent anymore. Karen, overwhelmed by the backlash, tried to justify her actions on camera, claiming she was protecting the community. But the footage from that day, recorded by multiple neighbors, told another story. A woman shouting accusations while another stood calm, dignified, and terrified. Then came the turning point. The HOA held an emergency meeting, thinking Tanya wouldn't show up. But she did, with her lawyer, with documentation, and with every piece of evidence she'd collected. She stood before them and said, "For years, you've treated me like I don't belong here. But I do, and I won't let anyone else go through what I did." The room was silent. For the first time, Karen couldn't speak. Within a month, the HOA president was forced to resign. The board issued a public apology. And Tanya, the woman they once saw as an outsider, became a voice for accountability in her community. But that wasn't the unthinkable part. The real shock came when Tanya used her settlement money to create a nonprofit called the Driveway Project, dedicated to helping black homeowners document and fight racial profiling in suburban spaces. The very driveway where she was accused became a symbol of her strength, a place where fear turned into justice. Months later, Tanya's neighborhood looked the same. Perfect lawns, white fences, children on bikes. But something had changed. People waved when she passed. Some out of guilt, others out of respect. A few even thanked her quietly for standing up when they hadn't. Tanya didn't crave their approval. She only wanted awareness. A reminder that silence protects no one, because what happened to her wasn't rare. It was just one story that finally got caught on camera. In interviews, she never sounded bitter, just honest. "I didn't want revenge," she said once. "I wanted change." And sometimes change starts with being brave enough to stand in your own truth, even when it feels like the whole world doubts it. Her story spread far beyond her street. Shared on social media, discussed in classrooms, used in community forums. What began as humiliation became a movement, because for every Tanya, there's another person somewhere being questioned, doubted, or accused, not because of what they did, but because of who they are. And the real question is, how many more times does this have to happen before we finally stop pretending it's just a misunderstanding? If you believe stories like Tanya's deserve to be heard, don't let this one fade away. Share it, talk about it, and subscribe, not just for more stories, but to be part of a community that refuses to stay silent. Because silence is where injustice hides, and stories, like this one, are how we bring it to light.